I'd like to bring the board meeting to order at 6:44. Call to order, Monica. What? Yeah. Wait. Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. And for a few moments of silence afterwards, too. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Monica, can we have roll call?
Dr. Hyde?
Here.
Mrs. Quintana?
Here.
Mr. Rolla?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
I would like to have approval of, a motion for approval of the minutes, and we would combine June 7th, June 12th, and June 14th. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Point of order, point of information, Madam Chairman. On the June 14th minutes, at the bottom of page 18 and the top of page 19, I did not nominate Mr. Thomas.
All right, so Dr. Hyde has pointed out, proposed a correction to the minutes. So you have, you want to move to correct them in that manner, Dr. Hyde?
Sure. Yeah, I move that we make those corrections. The issue also is who did make that nomination.
I did.
You nominated yourself as well as I?
Yes, I did.
All right, so, you know, the statements there by the board members will stand for the record, and you can ask if there's any objection. If there's no objection, then the minutes could be amended in that manner. Whose motion was it to amend? I mean, excuse me, to adopt the minutes? Okay.
Mr. Rolla.
Rolla, seconded by Mr. Thomas.
Okay. So, Mr. Rolla could could move to amend his own motion to approve the minutes as amended by Dr. Hyde. That'd probably be the easiest way to move forward, if there's a disagreement about the correction, I can help you with that.
Okay.
Motion to accept the minutes as amended by Dr. Hyde on the changes of the June 14, 2018.
Okay, so now we have an amended motion to approve the minutes, and that would need a second, and then you can move forward with a vote on that.
Roll call.
Well, you need a second again for the amended.
We need to do a second, so motion to
Second.
Okay.
second. Roll call, Monica.
Dr. Hyde?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana?
Aye.
Mr. Rolla?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
And we need to amend the agenda.
Well, there needs to be a vote on the original motion.
Oh, on the original one?
All right,
The minutes?
it was superseded by his own amendment. It was his motion, he amended it. So you're done with that.
Okay. So, I'd like to approve,
A motion for the.
motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
There are a couple,
We have to amend it.
yes.
Oh.
So I'd like to amend the agenda to, do I need to read it?
You
Yes.
should clarify what your changes are.
There is a need to amend the agenda this evening. I need a motion to amend item 3.3 to increase the not to exceed the amount of $35,000 to $43,000. This is to cover the one-time cost of equipping the vehicles with plows and bins. And also at Superintendent's report, after the approval of the agenda, to include an update on the turnaround from CDE's Linda Medler. Can I get a motion to amend that?
So moved.
Second.
Can I get a roll call?
Dr. Hyde?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana?
Aye.
Mr. Rolla?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
I
And-
would like to add something to the agenda as well. I move to amend the agenda by adding as the first item under the business section the following: requests for greater transparency regarding the recent layoffs by the superintendent for purposes of restructuring.
I think we're gonna discuss that later because we went through our study session Thursday night and discussed everything on here. So, and I don't think you were here Thursday night, so we already have the agenda set.
Well, it's not set until we vote on it.
Well, Madam Chair, that is correct, Dr. Hyde. However, the point of order is proper in that, and as I understood what you said, the item that you wish to add to the agenda is a discussion item, whereas all the items on the agenda tonight are action items, and the discussion items by board previous agreement was to be heard at the study session. So are you proposing an action item for tonight or just a discussion item?
A discussion item, but my understanding is the chair can set an agenda, but or suggest an agenda, but it's not set until it's voted on by the board.
Well, so you have a motion from Dr. Hyde to further amend the agenda, and to clarify, the previous motion was just to amend, not to approve. So his motion is in order to that extent. My opinion is still that the way the board typically operates, it doesn't hear discussion items at the action meeting. So, you know, I think that's up to the chair. If you want to choose to recognize it, you could see if he has a second. If any of the other board members, if the majority of the board wants to have that discussion item tonight, so be it. You know, you could handle it that way. But
So, it's been offered to open up a discussion on the superintendent's personnel action he made. Did you say what date?
Here, I can give you a copy.
So he wants to amend the agenda by adding as the item under business the following: request for greater transparency regarding the recent layoffs by the superintendent and purposes of restructuring. Can I get a motion?
well, you have a motion, so you just, if
Need
the
a
issue is if there's a second.
Is there a second?
So the motion fails for lack of a
Motion
second.
fails. So, we'll go on to,
Point of information, Madam Chairman, I have a second motion. I move to amend the agenda by adding as the first item under business the following: discussion and review of policy GBEB, staff conduct, specifically general work rules regarding excessive absences and tardies.
Hold on, let me read it.
Madam Chair, I think that's the same issue. It comes to, you know, technically speaking, if the board wants to hear that tonight, it could do that. It's not in accordance with the way the board typically operates, with its preference to handle discussion items at study sessions, but, you know, he's made a motion to amend, and so if there's a second, then you could take it further.
so, there's a motion to amend the agenda for business. Can we get a motion or second? So the motion fails.
And so now you need a motion to approve the agenda that was amended, that Mr. Rolla amended.
So I need a motion to amend the agenda that Mr. Rolla motion approved. So can I get a second?
Second.
Can I have any discussion?
All right, so to clarify, this is a motion to approve the amended agenda, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Monica?
Dr. Hyde?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana?
Aye.
Mr. Rolla?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
Before we go into audience comments, I would like to bring up Lisa Medler, because she has to leave early, and she's from CDE, so on the turnaround.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So we're going to bring up the PowerPoint as well. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Abrego. So while she's bringing up the PowerPoint, you do have copies that look like this as well, if you want to follow along. So for the last few months, you had asked me to just give updates, and I had been giving you small ones, but had lacked some of the data to really give you more of an update. So I had a little bit more information, so I wanted to at least give you a draft, essentially progress monitoring on the district. So I've got a few slides here. The first few ones are reminders. So this should look familiar. We've been covering some of this in the previous study sessions as well. So I'll try and go through these first 3 slides fairly quickly. So as a reminder, because the district and the high school are on the, on the accountability clock, and action was directed by the board last spring, there's a progress monitoring expectation in place. I've been working with the district and have been providing updates to the State Board of Education. So that is currently what's going on. I also wanted to point out that Central Elementary, in the meantime, is nearing the end of the clock. So they will be entering year 5 come July 1. And so in preparation for that, the state review panel was visited with them in May, and that report should be released here pretty soon. I'm hoping within the next week or so. Come August, with the release of the district and school frameworks, then we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen next. If the high school and the district and even Central Elementary remain on the clock, then everything hereafter on this timeline will go into effect. If they receive a plan type of improvement or higher, then they should not be moving forward. Okay, so just to be clear about that. So if things do move forward, then in early fall, the state review panel would come back again to visit with the high school and with the district to get that external look and make recommendations to the state board. Then CDE will do an official progress monitoring based on this last half of the year. I'm going to give you an early view, but I want to make sure that we've got the frameworks in place before we do a final report to the board. But that will happen in October. And then later in the fall, then an appointment will be set so that you guys will meet with the board about the district and the high school to talk about the progress monitoring. At that time, the state board does have the authority to direct further action. That's remember those 5 options? We just spent a nice study session kind of diving in more deeply on those. And then if the Central Elementary continues on the clock, then they would have an official hearing in the spring, similar to what the district and the high school did last year. And in that case, action will be directed, since nothing's been directed to date, okay? So that's just a reminder on the next few few months on the timeline. The next slide is just a reminder on where the district and all the schools currently stand on the accountability clock. So just have that as a reference. And if a school or the district is on the clock, then you'll see in that last column the year that they're on the clock, okay? So the year 7 meaning for the district and the high school, meaning that direction was already directed by the state board. And then you see year 5 for Central Elementary. That's where they would be next in the queue. But you've got some other schools in there as well, okay? DuPont is year 4. So that's just a reference. In February, with the state board, a report was then shared with you guys as well on observations on the progress of the district and of the high school in implementing the turnaround plan that was approved and agreed to. So this is just a reminder on some of the points from CDE's perspective on how implementation was going. So essentially, for both the high school and the district, the major ideas of the plans were being implemented. Beyond Textbooks was working both with the schools that they had been asked to. And if you remember, they were given authority that if they give a recommendation, the district would treat it as a required action. And there was evidence that that was taking place. When talking about the district, there was some initial concern, and we had a little bit of discussion about this, where some of the systems within the district were not in place, and CDE was not receiving the data it needed in order to make this progress monitoring report. In the interim, data was then provided, and we were able to provide the report, but just needed to make note of that. One of the other issues was that while work was being done and people were working hard, those systems, those really basic district systems, were not in place to really affect and support the schools and turning things around. And then finally, when looking at the local data that was available, things were not on track to meet targets in order to come off the clock and really impact student achievement. So while we were seeing some progress, it just wasn't rapid enough. And then more specifically at the high school, it was actually really hard to determine what was going on since we didn't have all of the data. They had not been using an interim assessment, so we really couldn't see if they were on track there. So we were looking at other indicators like attendance and grades and things like that, which are okay, but are not definitive measures of whether things are progressing. So that was just the highlights from that progress monitoring from really the first semester. This is a draft of what has been observed in the months since then. Again, want the release of those frameworks before we finalize something to send on to the state board. So I'm going to go through the district first. So again, the major ideas of the turnaround plan continued to be implemented. Beyond Textbooks was well underway, and the district was making adjustments as they were directed. At this point, I've not received data, and I'm not clear whether the work of Beyond Textbooks is intensive enough to really make the big impact I think that was hoped for. Or maybe not quickly enough. So I think just make note of that. We don't have the evidence to suggest that things are turning around quickly. The district systems that I alluded to before are still emerging, but we're just not seeing enough movement forward, so still have some concerns there. That being said, there are definitely some good plans moving forward. Around assessment systems, around accountability systems, doing these walkthroughs, things like that, but it takes a while to get them in place, and so just need to see that continue. The other thing to add in is just, and this has come up in a few different ways, but wanting to really call it out in this report in particular, and that is concerns around the lack of communication, or at least people feeling like they're not getting the information that they need. in particular, staff and community groups are expressing frustration and feeling like the two-way communication, so communication might be pushed out, but it's not always being heard. And people are not sure how to influence things. So this probably needs to be a big focal area for the district, and pretty quickly. In looking at what local data has been made available from the district, and I know that you guys have started to have some study sessions to take a closer look at this as well, so hopefully this is not a big surprise. But it's looking fairly flat, not seeing some big jumps, whether we're looking at the performance of students, the achievement, or even at the growth. Seeing some grade levels that are experiencing some growth, but also seeing some grade levels that have less promising growth than in the past year. So, so overall, I would say it's fairly flat. At the high school level, again, turnaround plan was being implemented for the most part as was expected, and the relationship with Beyond Textbooks was positive. They continued to refine their implementation, and they were adjusting their practices as directed by the partner. Again, because I didn't have access to the interim assessment data, it's really hard to predict how the high school is going to do. So I feel like we're really waiting for the release of the pre-SAT, SAT scores to have a better sense of whether they will come off the clock. But in looking at what I would call leading indicators, so things like attendance, there's nothing in there, again, that shows that major shifts are going to happen, but I really don't know because I'm missing such a big part of the data. That being said, going into next year, the high school and the district have identified an interim assessment so that we will not be in the same place next year, because I feel like we're ending the school year not really knowing whether they've made progress or not. Okay, so as far as recommendations on next steps, and this is not official, but this is really my best thinking and my colleagues' best thinking on next steps based on some of these observations. And I feel like given the study sessions that we've been doing, I think you guys are on track on some of these already, and that is, you can certainly hope for the best with those performance frameworks and having the district and the high school and even Central Elementary come off the clock, but I wouldn't bank on that, and so I would do what you're doing, and that is plan for all of those entities remaining on the clock. So that would include continuing to explore those pathways. So, doing more of what we started today, and that is really digging into those pathways and determining what's a good fit, what's not, and really getting a better sense of what your community is wanting as well. Get ready for the state review panel. So you guys have been through that before, but that does take work to get ready for that, and actually go through and prepare a proposal that would be more rigorous than what you're currently doing. If you are experiencing flat growth, then you really need to look at what the systems are and probably need to dig in a little bit deeper. So that being said, again, actively engaging with your staff and community, really needing to get input, and this is representative. The plan should be representative of what works within this context. For Central Elementary, it's the same thing. Consider their own unique needs. The reason I added in that wording is because they deserve an honest appraisal of where they are and what their context is, and not to get caught up in the tidal wave of the district plan and the high school, that it really is, that's a unique school, and so taking the time to really look at, are there some other things that need to happen a little differently for them? They don't operate in a vacuum, obviously, so what's going on in the district needs to be considered, but really taking the time to understand what needs to happen at Central Elementary in particular. And then would recommend that the district prepare a proposal in anticipation of that hearing in the spring. And then finally, take advantage of the supports that are available through the department and through your external partners. I know there's a lot of people that that want to help. Sometimes it's hard to even prioritize. So the work that you've been doing, for example, with me, is one form of help, and that is just getting the information that you need. But there's a lot of other supports through the department and through some of your partners that you're already tapping into, but more is available. So let's work on getting those things identified. Okay? So with that being said, that is the conclusion of my presentation and the update for now. Again, I want to emphasize this is all draft, not official. When that happens later this fall, I'll make sure to update you guys. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Medler, I have a couple of questions.
Yep.
I'm going to reveal my ignorance by asking this particular question. What is unique about Central Elementary?
So when I say unique, meaning that each school is, I would say that each school is unique. So I'm not trying to signal.
Central Elementary is on this PowerPoint.
Because they are entering year 5 on the clock, so I'm going to point you back to
So
slide
it's the
3.
where they are.
It's
on
where
the
they
clock.
are on the clock.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, sorry.
Anyway,
Yep.
yeah, thank you. My second question is on the slide prior to this one, under Adams City High School, the last bullet point, you say they have agreed on an interim assessment. Do you have a timeline for that interim assessment?
And so unless there's somebody here from the district, I can let you know my understanding. But the district probably can speak to this as well. My understanding is that the district, or the high school, will resume using the STAR assessment, which is also what is being used in the other grades, so that there's the same thing. This is what was in place in the high school in the previous year, but they took this last year off.
Okay, but interim, I was focused, I guess the operative word here is interim. So what's the time frame for the interim?
So part of what we were pushing for was to ensure that there was a benchmarking schedule in place, so that there was at least 3 times during the year that these assessments were taking place. So once in the fall, once in the winter, once in the spring. Okay. And so just like in the elementary and middle schools, I believe you did a data walk a few study sessions ago. You were able to look at some of that data. Now you should be able to look at it with the high school right alongside.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Does that help? Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move into audience comments, but I'd like to read policy BEDH. A maximum of 3 minutes per speaker will be allotted to present comments, concerns, or suggestions. No ceding of time between speakers will be permitted. The total amount of audience participation at any board meeting will be limited to 30 minutes. The board president may use discretion in time allocation in extraordinary circumstances. Complaints involving the reputation of any person connected with the district will not be heard by the board while sitting in public session. Public comment time is made available for the public to address issues, not personalities. Personal attacks will not be permitted. So we are now, I'd like Jesse Ramirez to come up.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Ramirez. I'm the executive director and founder of Inspire. Tonight, I'm not here to ask you guys to bring Inspire back. Matter of fact, that decision's already been made. Tonight, I'm here actually to thank you guys. I'm not here to thank you guys for walking away from a program that helped transform the school, raise expectations, that helped grow scholarship dollars from $400,000 to $2.5 million. I'm not here to thank you guys for walking away from a program where you guys have heard students stand in this very spot and say that they are alive and breathing because of this program, that their dreams now seem more real because of this program. I'm not here tonight to thank you guys for walking away, firing someone who's helped change and lift the spirits of so many of our students, Mr. Guardiola, I'm not here to thank you guys for firing Mr. Thompson, who I saw in the back, who was the last principal who instilled hope and inspiration into a high school, who made teachers want to teach, made students want to learn, made families want to get involved. No, I'm not here to thank you guys for that. Tonight, I'm here to thank you guys for reminding me what I was taught as a little kid by my mom, who's a first-generation high school graduate, who taught me and my brothers that no matter what, we had to stand up and fight for other people who can't stand up and fight for themselves. I've given my heart to this community, to these students. When students have thought about taking their own lives, I'm the call that they made before they decided not to do it. When kids found out that their sisters were brutally murdered, I was the person that they called who went down to the hospital, spent all night with them. I'm the kids who told them, even when they're in college, when their professors tell them, well, you got a D in college, so maybe now your dream of being a doctor isn't real, who sat there and told them, hey, you don't let anyone else determine your future other than yourselves. Tonight, I'm here to thank you guys for reminding me of what I was taught as a kid, to always stand up and fight for other people. So thank you guys for reminding me that like I try to teach my students to be activists, that I too have to be an activist. Inspire will be back at Adams City High School this next year. Granted, we won't have a contract, but I'll tell you one thing. And the day that I sent out a text message to our 3 group chats from the 3 years that I've been there, and I said, if anyone knows a person who wants to go to Inspire this summer, have them come see me and get a packet. The very next day, I had 70 rising seniors come in there and get packets and come back the next day and turn them in. Although when the superintendent told me our services were no longer needed, and I told him that there would be uproar in the community, and he said, it's okay, we're used to it. All they kept telling me was attitude reflects leadership. What's your attitude and what's your leadership going to be? My commitment is to take those 30 kids from Adams City up to CSU, and this next year, not only are we going to help them go to college, we're going to train them on how to be community organizers in the likes of Cesar Chavez.
Your time is up.
And the likes of other people like Dolores Huerta. We are training a whole generation of activists. And there's a Mexican proverb which reads, they tried to bury us, but they didn't realize that we are seeds. My seeds are planted throughout this district.
Got it.
Thank you, guys.
Next is Lissa Lovato.
Okay, good evening. Again, my name is Lissa Lovato. I've been a resident here in Commerce City for 38 years. Went to Kemp Elementary, Kearney, Adams City High School alumni. I do have a little thing I'm going to read so I can stay as cordial as possible. It starts off by saying, good evening. I am here speaking directly to you, David Rolla. You have a legacy here in Commerce City. Your name is on a baseball field. Unfortunately, because of your lack of leadership in the Adams 14 School Board, that baseball field will not be your legacy. Your legacy will be the damage you have done to our children in Adams 14 with your unwillingness to learn or listen. And that actually goes for everybody.
You cannot, excuse me, you cannot.
There will be children.
Excuse me, you cannot call out names and negativity.
Okay, then I won't finish reading that, and I'll just speak directly to everyone. It's chaos. Clearly, you guys are not a united front. Clearly, you guys can't even hold a board meeting without complete direction. This current, it's done. You guys have played your course. You know, you went to school with my mother, and she's even said that she's retired now. Connie, you guys should be out enjoying retirement and let the fresh people come in and direct and do things that are good for this community. They got an opportunity to do that, and they were in it for 3 years, and they did marvelous things. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Guardiola, Mr. Ramirez. You have proof. Numbers are proof. People that come here and speak are proof. How many times is this room full of people that have nothing positive to say to you? It's all negative. Have you ever been praised for anything positive you've done? Nothing. Then we give our new superintendent $25,000, $25,000 more dollars. How can you honestly justify that? Giving him more money for what? Ruining our district, now going to be taken over? Really? When you have people that are fully capable of getting money for scholarships, we have plenty of students who have full rides, Mr. Rolla. It's not far-fetched dream for these kids to go to CU and CSU. We have current students there with full rides, thanks to Mr. Guardiola and Inspire. We have kids that are getting paid to go to CSU and CU, thanks to Inspire and Mr. Guardiola, with the direction of Mr. Thompson. You know, you should do everyone a favor and everyone realize, start new. Can we start new? Let the community pick the new board members. Let the community pick the new superintendent. That's actually all I have to say. Good evening.
Next, I'd like to have Jose Guardiola.
Good evening. Jose Guardiola, here as a resident, alumni, former employee. I just wanted to see if we're seeing the same patterns. Sitting in your study session, hearing Ms. Medler from CDE telling us we're not going anywhere. We're failing. This man has even gone us deeper and deeper, and you guys still believe in him? When the numbers at Adams City and this district are failing, we're flat, that's not going up. We're flat. We're looking at other options already. School closure, charter, reconstruct or organization. That's your leader. And you guys still support a man like that, digging our community down? What slides were you guys looking at? Because I was looking at them right now and hearing Ms. Medler. The state is telling you guys you're failing, and you guys still back him up. When you have perfect options to go up, what are you guys thinking? Think about that. And on the legacy. Miss Quintana, what's the legacy for you? I remember when you brought your grandkid to us, and we fixed him. You know that. You forgot that. Mr. Rolla, great baseball coach. Amazing. That's your legacy? This is your legacy. Harvest, we've had lots of conversations, great conversations about community. Where's that at? Think about what you guys are doing. Because I don't really think you guys are. Because the numbers don't lie. CDE doesn't mess around. There's rumors that they will come in here, and I hope they do. Because our community deserves better. Our community deserves a superintendent that's going to love this Commerce City town like it should be, not someone that's on vacation for the rest of his retirement trying to get his para. Our community deserves transparency, and looking at the same numbers that we just saw today, and how are we going to look at those numbers and say, man, we are failing. But then this guy tells you, no, we're going to be all right, wink, wink. We're going to be all right, wink, wink. Inspire and I were cut. I still haven't got a justification why my position was cut. You looked up there, Lester Arnold is in yellow. Yellow. We would be in green next year, I guarantee you. And you go in there and cut a position that was the piece, the missing piece? How is that right? How is that right? I emailed you guys this evening again because he responded. I want a justification of what you guys, why my position was cut. Think about that. I mean, we were yellow. We're not red. But then a principal at a red school gets a new contract. She must be doing something right. These kids can't stand that culture, Mr. Rolla. We did. I remember the old high school. It's dead. She killed it last year when kids stand up at graduation to turn their back on this man and that principal. Is that the culture you want? No. We know the culture we want, Mr. Rolla. We've been here. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go on to consent and
Yes,
routine items.
Connie.
What's that?
Dr. Abrego wants to
Oh,
make a comment.
Dr. Brave, go ahead.
And I usually don't make comments, but I just want to say to the young man that just spoke, what was the status of the high school when he was there? If I'm correct, it was still in turnaround, so he was giving.
Excuse me.
Point of order. Superintendent, you out of order right now with that.
I apologize. I apologize, Mr. Thomas.
You are out of order, Superintendent. This is
And-
not,
Okay, let's
Go back and
let's
forth.
cut this now.
Miss Board President,
You
I
can laugh
do
all you
apologize.
want.
Board President, I do apologize. Mr. Thomas is right. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, so those of you who don't want to be here may be excused. And we will go into routine items now. I'd like a motion to approve
Can't even give her
the
right
consent
name.
items.
She doesn't see it.
Thank you.
See, look at that.
I know, I saw it. I know what she said.
She couldn't even give her right name. That's Jose's wife.
So, are we ready? I'd like to, a motion to approve the consent items. 1.1.
So moved.
Second? Second?
I believe you need a second in order to move into discussion.
Yes,
All right,
yes.
second.
No, it's just to clarify, it's not discussion. There was a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation. There had not been a second. Mr. Thomas was clarifying that he had some that he wanted to pull from the consent items, and that's appropriate. So just need to be clear about which ones you want to pull, and if there's any other pulls, then you can move forward.
Form page 27.
Is this under certified?
First, administration.
Under what?
Under administration, page 27. Number 4.
Yes.
I have a point of information, Madam Chairman. I have two sets of paginations. One is on my computer, and the other one is actually the pagination at the bottom of the page, which, under administration, thank you.
Number 4.
27. Okay. Thank you. And what was the number? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have to pull number 4 on page 27. Now, do you want to discuss, go and discuss it, or?
I want to discuss it.
Well, so just the way that the consent agenda operates, pulling the names, that's what that has the effect of doing. The previous motion to approve it without any pulls, I mean, that's dead. So I would ask just to confirm that there are no other pulls from the board. And if not, then you could seek a motion to approve the consent items as they were changed without
Okay.
that number.
Are there any other ones that you want pulled? No? Mr. Rolla? No? So I would like a motion to approve the rest of the consent items except for number 4,
Second.
Under administration.
Yeah, on page 27.
under administration, yes.
So moved.
Roll call?
Dr. Hyde?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana?
Aye.
Mr. Rolla?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
We need to go into exec. Where's my,
Which one?
for CRS 24-6-402, parentheses 4B, legal advice. Can I get
So move.
Second.
roll call?
Dr. Hyde?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana?
Aye.
Mr. Rolla?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Aye.
We'll be back.